Hello, my name is Joshua Leeds. I'm speaking to you from North Carolina in the southeast of the United States on July the 28th, 2022. I'm here to speak about the particular topic of why Soundwork Research Matters. This is the first of 3 video blogs that correspond with written blogs. All of them can be found on my website at joshualeeds.com. The other 2 titles of presentations are The Culture is the Patient and Public Music. And when put together with today's topic of why Soundwork Research Matters, it brings out 3 important tenets from a book that I'm currently writing entitled Soundwork on a Hot Rock. I'm using the term sound work a lot, and it occurs to me that maybe people don't even know what that means. I use the term sound work to apply to the concept of music and sound that is designed for intentional and specific purposes on the nervous system. It's about how do we use vibration, whether or not it's in the form of music or it's in the form of tone, how do we use vibration and frequency to be able to have a positive impact at a time when all the positive impacts we can bring are really going to be great. So what we all know is that we're living in a time of great disruption, and disruption is quite difficult for the nervous system. The nervous system is used to certainty, and we are living in a time where uncertainty is running wild. And so how do we deal with that? And what is the relevance of the work that we do? And that's what my book, Soundwork on a Hot Rock, is all about. It's about we are living in a time of massive change. And whether or not it's pathogens like COVID, or whether or not it's global warming, or whether or not it's social injustice issues, or social justice issues that are not being addressed, whether or not it's about rights, it could be about any number of things. It's our economies are going to the toilet. Everybody's having a hard time. And I think that this is going to continue for a while. And I can get pretty dystopian about all of this. I can get dark, but I also can get pretty light about it. And that's where I choose to focus my attention. Where's the renaissance? Where's the silver lining that comes from this? I've been asking these questions in video interviews and in my writings for a long time now. And especially since 2019 when COVID came along. But it's not just about COVID, it's about all of these things that are coming to a head. It's about how do we find a realignment of the human culture on this planet, the human culture around the planet, and how and where is the relevance of music and of sound in these new times, because there is no new normal. The new normal keeps on changing to a different normal. And then that's going to keep on changing. And I think that we've got decades ahead of us. But in the process of these decades of disruption and uncertainty, the question that I keep on asking is, what is it that we can do to make a positive difference so that by the time that we get to the end of this realignment, we are in a place where we are sharing this planet with our fellow brothers and sisters, with our other animal friends, with the air and the water, with all of it, the whole gestalt, all combined. How do we do it in a better way, in a sweeter way, in a more positive way, in a sustainable way, between our values and between our actions? How do we find an integration of all of that? And then what I ask is, how can we use music and sound in times of uncertainty and in times where the culture is in stress? So what I want to talk about are 2 primary things today. I want to talk about how this research has come about, why now, and I also want to talk about an extraordinary archive that one can find at the University of California in San Francisco on a website known as the Sound Health Network, where they have taken 411 studies and put them all together. It's growing all the time. And researchers like myself, and hopefully if I can motivate you, the second part of this presentation is about how to use this archive to help you to move forward in your gig as a sound worker in the 21st century. In 2017, something quite miraculous took place. An extraordinarily world-renowned opera singer by the name of Renee Fleming met an extraordinarily esteemed and highly respected scientist by the name of Francis Collins. Renee Fleming has won every award in the book, has sung on every major stage, and is an extraordinary musician to the nth degree. Well, the same thing can be said about Francis Collins. However, he has performed his work as a scientist, where he was the head of the Genome Project, and he also has been the leader of the National Institutes of Health, the primary grant funding arm of science here in the United States. And as all things perfect can be perfect, there was a dinner party, and Renee Fleming met Francis Collins, and they got into a conversation about their love of music and sound, and then how they both were curious about how music and sound could be used as a viable tool in our culture. That extraordinary meeting of this musician and of this scientist resulted in 2019 the granting of $20 million to be used in 15 research studies that are currently either wrapping up or will be going for another 2 years. One of the things that I've learned while I've been researching this for both this presentation and for my book is that when a topic is granted, as they are parsed and found to be of great value, then usually the money that's given to them, the $1 million or the $2 million or whatever it happens to be, is usually to take a topic from point A to point B. And at point B, if it is worthy, there is usually more money that will then come that will allow that topic to be studied from point B to point C or D or etc. And so what it means is that now that Soundwork has been granted this money, there is a pipeline into the National Institutes of Health and also the National Endowment for the Arts, two government agencies here, one devoted to medicine and science, the other one devoted to the arts, that have taken great interest in the work that we are doing as sound workers, whether or not that's as music therapists, or whether or not that's as therapeutic bedside musicians, or whether or not that's as people who are playing music because it helps to calm or it helps to excite. But the point is that in 2017, this meeting between Renee Fleming and Francis Collins has taken the world of sound work and advanced it 100 miles down the road. I don't think that this has ever happened before. And now here we are. And so the question that I ask, now that we're in a time where sound work is being studied under the auspices of sound health, why does that matter to us as sound workers? The reason why it matters from my vantage point really comes down to 5 different areas. Why it matters for sound workers, this recognition and absorption of sound work into mainstream culture has the following impact. 1, more jobs. As research continues, there are going to be more places, hospitals, community centers, everything in between, where now that they've got the science on it, they're going to be able to talk about where do we find the people that can start to utilize this information and this knowledge and be working within our communities, whether or not it's in medicine or whether or not it's within the communities on the street. The second area as to why it matters is that there's going to be more respect. I think that just about everybody who's worked in sound work can say that while many people hold them in great respect, the fact is that the field has always been considered somewhat fringe, somewhat, I believe, one man's opinion, on the outside of the table of integrative medical and social techniques that can have a serious impact. And I think that now with this science, it's taking the entire field of sound work and it's evolving us into a place where I think that we will have much greater acknowledgement within our culture and within our society. The third reason why I think it matters is because it's going to mean that we'll be able to have a greater impact. The more that we understand as sound workers, the more that we understand the research, the more that we understand how it is that these elements of tone, resonance, and tempo, which is entrainment, and pattern identification, the more that these elements are studied, the more we can become refined in how it is that we use them. The fourth area is about greater skill sets. You know, for a long time I was a guitar player, and then I was a pianist, and now I'm about to learn a whole other instrument. I want to keep on improving my skill set. That just because we have learned how to become therapeutic bedside musicians and know how to read pulses and understand what is the important thing to do in a hospital bed with a particular client, doesn't mean that that's the only place where we have the opportunity to work. It means that we get to read a lot of this research and go, oh, that sounds very interesting. I'd like to branch into that and either add that to my existing base of education or start out in a whole new aspect of this growing field of sound work. The fifth area that I believe is most relevant is about how we now have got access to deep archives of scientific information. That means that we can bring our work into places where before the doors were somewhat closed. It means that as a psychotherapeutic professional, it means as a doctor, as a nurse, it means as a musician in a school, we now have got the groundwork that has been laid through these scientific researches to be able to bring this deeper information forward. All the way around, it means that we can become more intellectual and more academic in our presentation. The intuitive knowledge that we all have is extraordinary. And when we team that up with a scientific basis, it makes us into very, very powerful forces that can bring tremendous good to our world at a time when it really needs it. The second area that I'd like to talk about today is about how to use these research studies. I remember when I started to go to the library at the University of California at Berkeley. I was living in the Bay Area at the time. And it was as somebody who never took any science classes because I was always in the music department, science and research studies just scared the hell out of me. And so I can remember coming back with 30 or 40 studies that I had found, and I just didn't know what to do with them. I just started to read them and they would put me to sleep, or I would lose my attention around them until I learned how to make the best use of this information. We're now at the Sound Health Network online. The domain is SoundHealth.ucsf.edu. I love this website. I've been in this field for a long time, and I've never seen a compilation similar to what they have here. I've spent probably 40 or 50 hours up here on this website. I feel like it's like going back to school, only they never had a school like this when I was first coming up in the ranks of sound workers back in the 80s. And here, I want to take you to a few of my favorite watering holes. Another place that I like to spend time is here under news and events. And every one of these categories you will find to be of amazing value. I notice the words that I keep on using to describe these things: amazing, wonderful, extraordinary. But I can't think of anything else to be able to say it. And those adjectives all describe Renee Fleming and what this amazing musician did over the course of 19 episodes while she was locked down during 2020 and COVID. She did one interview a week for 19 weeks with the most knowledgeable, informative, heartfelt people working in the field of music and science. I have been through every one of these. I've spent 19 hours up here, and each of these are about an hour long. And I'm ready to go back because I've not found anything like this currently that brings me so much value as somebody who's been involved in this field for so long and sometimes thinks that I know most of everything there is to know. And I come up here and the truth is it ends up that I don't know squat. But where I really, really find the holy grail of research is here under the research, the clearinghouse tab. And here you're going to find 415 research studies that this Sound Health organization has put together. They're from all over the world. All of the studies that we've been talking about so far from the NEA and from the NIH are all American studies. But I see studies here from China, studies from Japan, from Israel, from Europe, all over, because people are finding so much value in being able to study the effect of music and the neuroscience behind it. And that's the reason why the NIH funded this to the tune of $20 million, was because they're understanding that if you can understand how the brain works with music, it gives you a basic understanding of how the brain works, period. Take a look at some of these titles of these studies. This is current 2022, the effects of music and auditory beat stimulation on anxiety. Musical and non-musical sounds influence the flavor perception of chocolate ice cream. Oh, I want to be in that one. And emotional responses, that's fun. Music intervention for pain control in the pediatric population. Or study protocol for the Alzheimer music therapy study. Or association of music interventions with health-related quality of life, or the effect of music on pain sensitivity in healthy adults. And so whether or not it is about the study of newborn babies or children or young adults or elderly people, or it's about stroke recovery or Parkinson's disease or cancer, or it's about what's taking place in our culture with music, I came across, while I was scrolling through all of this, a study that I want to use as an example of how they can get very granular and very specific in every area that you can imagine that you'd want to know more about. I came across a study called Help, I Need Somebody, quoting the Beatles. Music is a global resource for obtaining well-being goals in times of crisis. Oh my God, this is exactly what my book is about. My book, Soundwork on a Hot Rock, is all about how do we use music and sound in times of crisis around the world. And here is a research study where I don't have to start at the beginning. I can stand on the shoulders of these guys. So I click on this, it brings me to another page on their website. It talks about the authors a little bit, and it has an abstract in here. And then I'm going, after I've read the abstract, I want to see the actual article. And so I click on this link. Look how easy they've made it. I've come here to the Frontiers in Psychology, peer-reviewed journal. And here is this research study about how music can reduce stress and anxiety, enhance positive mood, and facilitate social bonding. However, little is known about the role of music and related personal or cultural variables in maintaining well-being during times of stress and social isolation, as imposed by the COVID-19 crisis. Music was found to be the most effective activity, as per this abstract, for 3 out of 5 well-being goals: enjoyment, venting negative emotions, and self-connection. For diversion, music was equally good as entertainment, while it was second best to create a sense of togetherness after socialization. The result was evident across different countries and gender, with minor effects of age on specific goals, and a clear effect of the importance of music in people's lives. Boy, I can hardly wait to read this entire research study. It's going to be so great for my book. Now I want to talk about research studies. They always start out with an abstract and an introduction. And in each one of the introductions, the science researchers have got to justify what it is that they're saying. And so they list all kinds of additional research studies that all of the links are listed right here. So if you want to go deeper into even the particular phrase, music is a powerful stimulus that can drive our affective states, then it's right here. All you have to do is click on this link and it's going to take you to the peer-reviewed journal study. Now, I want to make a little confession. I am neither a scientist, I'm really not an academic. I'm a self-taught sound worker. And I taught myself by writing 3 books. And I did a lot of research. And it really took a lot for me to do this research because it used to make my eyes go wiggy. It used to make my mind go even wiggier. And I would have to get out my printer, print it out, use a highlighter for the points that I really wanted to understand, and then maybe read it a number of times. And so what? It took me a bit of time to do it, but I did it. And it allowed me to be able to follow my nose, to be an investigator, like an investigative journalist, to be able to explore what it is that I wanted to know more about. So what I want to say to you, my fellow sound workers and lovers of music, is be knowledgeable. Take a look at these research studies, the ones that catch your attention, the ones that are about the things that you want to know more. And if it takes you a while to be able to get it, then it takes you a while, but you'll get it and you'll be so glad because you're going to be so much more knowledgeable about all of this. The structure of these research studies is pretty much the same. There's always a discussion about their methods. These methods then lead into the materials and the procedures of what they're doing. There's the results, and there's always inevitably the tables and the graphs. And scientists like to do that, and it's handy, it's good. And everybody gets from these things what it is that they need. And at the end, there is a discussion, and there is also a conclusion. But then there is, to me, what is really the most extraordinary thing. And that is, there is the references. And the references here allow me to be able to go back through the 100 or more studies that these people used to put together their meta-analysis. And I can follow these links and I can find out exactly, if I'm interested in health and well-being in higher education, a comparison of music and sports students through the framework of self-determination theory. Well, I never really thought about that, but if I wanted to, I just hit this link and I go up to the PubMed Research, the National Library of Music. Now, this particular study only lists 5 references. But if I go back to the earlier study, there were over 100 references. So what I want to say to you is don't be afraid of these research studies. They're absolutely fantastic. And the Sound Health Network has done a compilation of these studies that is unparalleled, as far as I know, anywhere. And so everybody, take advantage of this wonderful resource and go for it. So as I listened to this last sequence, I hear how many times I'm saying amazing, extraordinary. It's like I'm just effusing like crazy. I'm passionately excited about what it is that I have seen up there, because the University of California at San Francisco, in conjunction with all of these other organizations, have provided for us the most amazing and extraordinary tools for us to be better at what it is that we do. I want to just thank everybody for their interest in this field, for taking their time to become stronger, more compassionate, and kinder. So everybody take good care, and onward to the Renaissance. Yeah.